Good morning. The council will come to order. Madam Clerk, please take a quorum roll call.
The voting is now open. The voting is now open. Please use your e-device. Mark yourself present. The quorum roll call is now open. Okay, I will now take a roll call for any of those that have not used the e-device. Take a voice vote. Alderman Hopkins, not present. Alderman Robinson, not present. Alderman Hall. Alderman Hall is present. Alderman Mitchell. Alderman Mitchell is present. Alderperson Harris. Present. Oh, Alderperson Harris is not present. Alderperson Ramirez. Alderperson Ramirez is present. Alderperson Gutierrez is present. Alderperson Mosley, not present. Alderperson Scott, not present. Alderman Cicho Lopez, not present. Alderman Cardona, not present. Alderperson Rodriguez Sanchez, not present. Alderperson Nugent. Alderperson Nugent is present. Alderperson Napolitano. Alderperson Napolitano is present. Alderperson Lawson, not present. Alderperson Haddon, not present. Mayor, we have a quorum.
Thank you very much, Madam Clerk. There are 40 members present, so we do have a quorum. Now, there's a number of individuals that wish to participate remotely. Can I get a motion? There are a number of people who are requested to participate in today's meeting remotely for reasons stated in Rule 59. Can I get a motion to approve the remote participation? It's been moved so we can add it to the quorum. We have Alders Robinson, Harris, Mosley, Scott, Cardona, Rodriguez Sanchez, Lawson, and Haddon. All those in favor of allowing for virtual participation requested by these alders signify by saying aye. All those opposed say nay. In the opinion of the chair, the ayes have it. Madam Clerk, please mark those various alders present as participating remotely for the quorum call. Let's stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Please remain standing for our invocation, and our invocation will be delivered by Alder of the 6th Ward, William Hall.
Let's bow our heads. God, we first of all say thank you for this day. God, we thank you that you've given us strength in our bodies, and we thank you that you've renewed your mercy on this day. Now, God, as we come into this room, may we represent those who are not here. May we always remember to keep love on our agenda today, and may our differences do not divide us. God, we pray that we discover things that we did not know before, but when it's all said and done, may your will be done on earth as it is in heaven. And we ask these things in Jesus' name, amen.
Amen. Thank you. You may be seated. Madam Clerk, please read the call of today's special meeting.
The following call for a special meeting of the City Council was filed in my office on Thursday, February 8th at 10:36 a.m. To the honorable members of the City Council, ladies and gentlemen, I hereby call a special meeting of the City Council of the City of Chicago to be convened at 11 a.m. on Thursday, February 15, 2024, in the City Council chamber in the City Hall for the sole purpose of setting the date and time of the next regular meeting of the City Council for February 15, 2024 at 11:30 a.m. for no other purpose whatsoever. Very truly yours, Brandon Johnson, Mayor.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. This is the portion of the meeting for public comment.
The council will now begin the public comment period, which is limited to a maximum of 30 minutes. Each speaker is limited to 3 minutes. Speakers cannot yield or transfer their time to another speaker. Any written comments that have been submitted will be posted and made available for automatic review. The first speaker today is Matthew Conti.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen of the City Council, Wisconsin. I appreciate the opportunity to address you today regarding a crisis, a matter of great concern to our beautiful city. On behalf of the West of the River Coalition, the issue of unhoused tent encampments, which have become notorious for drug use and distribution, along with crimes against those who live and work there. Has anyone in this assembly been assaulted, beaten, or robbed by a tent dweller? September 11th, 2023, I was assaulted and battered by a panhandler on the public sidewalk on Lake Street, as if I was trespassing in his backyard. My office was robbed. Other attorneys have been harassed and assaulted. The list goes on and on. While we understand that our progressive administration is in favor of these encampments as a solution to homelessness, it is crucial to acknowledge the negative impact they are having on our community located west of the river, along Lake Street, Milwaukee, and Fulton Street, under the train viaducts. We ask that you, as the decision makers of our city, explore alternative approaches that prioritize both compassion and public safety. Let's not follow the disastrous policies of cities like Portland, Seattle, and San Francisco. I have witnessed firsthand the drug use distribution at this homeless encampment and understand, like you do, that this perpetuates deadly addictions and an unsafe environment for the unhoused and those living and working nearby. On November 10th, 2023, the West of the River Coalition delivered a petition to the Honorable Mayor Brendan Johnson and corresponded the aldermen in the districts along with the Chicago Police Department. This petition was signed by over 1,500 seriously concerned residents asking the city to relocate this encampment. On November 17th, 2023, the Honorable 42nd Ward Alderman Brendan Riley and 34th Ward Alderman Bill Conway delivered a letter to the mayor attaching the signed petition, which they supported. In response, we received a generic, undated reply sent by Deputy Mayors Johnson and Gatewood that contained no plan of action to resolve this crisis. Should the controversial proposal to impose an additional 3.5% transfer tax on real estate transactions in excess of $1 million pass in March's referendum, additional millions will be earmarked for supporting the unhoused. Currently, there is enough alternative housing available, yet these tent dwellers choose to live on city sidewalks because that's where they conduct their illegal business and make money to the detriment of our community. I challenge each and every one of you to walk north to Lake Street today after work. Go west of the river, to see for yourself truth. In conclusion,
Mr. Conti, thank you very much for your comments. However, your time has expired. Our next speaker is Queen Adusuyi.
My name is Queen Adusuyi, and I'm representing Color of Change and the Coalition for Police Accountability and Transparency. We thank you for the December vote to reject Arbitrator Ben's arbitration award, especially in the face of the police union's bullying and scare tactics. Today, we ask you to oppose this award again. Before you vote today, please consider the following. 1, police officers should be held to the highest standards of accountability and transparency, particularly due to their qualified immunity protections, along with the decades of documented abuses that Black, Latina, low-income, and disabled Chicagoans have faced because of the officers' abilities to violate constitutional rights with impunity. There is great public interest in ensuring that police officers who commit gross misconduct are appropriately held accountable and that gross misconduct is not shielded or accepted on the force. 2, Mr. Benz committed a fundamental legal error when he refused to consider the profound public interest and welfare in moving open disciplinary hearings of the worst police misconduct allegations away from an independent, publicly accountable body with full due process protections over to a closed-door private arbitration process before arbitrators who have a proven track record of protecting officers from discipline. This error violates Section 14, subsection H of the Illinois Public Labor Relations Act. 3, Section 12 of the Illinois Uniform Arbitration Act requires a reviewing court to vacate an arbitration award if there is evident partiality by the arbitrator. There is substantial evidence of partiality in Mr. Benz's award, which is laid out comprehensively in our written comment. Evidence includes his biased accusations that city leaders violated their oath of office, his reference to the transparency and accountability arguments that were taken into consideration by the council as, quote, quote, Chicago's version of the big lie, comparing these legitimate public interest concerns with Trump's assertions that the 2020 elections were rigged. His threats to impose significant sanctions on the city, which highlights an inappropriate predetermination of how he intends to rule on grievances resulting from the city's legal challenges. His singling out of a specific member of the public, Craig Futterman, for his criticism of Mr. Benz's decision, which is entirely unnecessary to support the basis of his decision. His reference to published academic research by highly respected subject matter experts as, quote, quote, pure nonsense. Furthermore, Mr. Benz refers to the city's potential liability for rejecting the award as, quote, quote, large and potentially staggering. Yet he provides no justification for using such inflammatory language. Objectively, the number of individual cases to be affected by the award is not substantial relative to the total number of disciplinary matters resolved by the city. This reference appears directly intended to scare the city council into accepting the award. The city's legal challenge stands on solid legal ground. Protect transparency and accountability in how gross police misconduct is addressed by voting to reject the arbitration award and allow the court challenge to this award. Thank you.
Thank you very much for your comments. Our next speaker is Krista Noel.
Good morning,
Good morning.
Mayor and City Council members. My name is Krista Noel. I'm with Women's All Points Bulletin, WAPB. I'm also a member of the Chicago Alliance Against Racist and Political Repression. I speak to you from my heart. I have been working against police violence against women since 2009. I'm a survivor myself. I have been going to police board meetings since 2009 too, because when I was attacked by a police officer, it scared me. So I went to police board meetings because I trusted that the police in Chicago would protect me and help me get over the fact that I had been beaten by a police officer. Since that time, we have fought for Rekia Boyd, we have fought for Betty Jones, we have fought for many, many women who have been killed by the police. And when I say that we fought, we spoke before the police board almost every month. Every month. And not only was I able to speak before the police board to get these individuals fired that killed these women unnecessarily, so was he. Every police officer who wanted to speak was able to speak. It is not an unfair process. Everyone can speak. It's open, it's transparent. There's no reason whatsoever for you to vote against or vote for arbitration, okay? We have had, me and this guy, have had some really good arguments, and we have disagreed. He disagrees with the fact that Robert Rialmo was fired. I don't, and he was. And that's the way it should be. We should be able to disagree with the police in public, in front of a body that is making that decision. There's no reason whatsoever why that should be contained and not allowed for both sides to speak out. And let me say, when it came to Rialmo, a lot of police officers spoke out. A lot. They really thought that it was fair for a grandmother to open her door and to be shot dead by the police. They really thought that. But that's something that we needed to hear. We needed to hear that. I appreciate police officers getting up and saying what they think and their, weird way of justifying killing people. But it was open and it did what it needed to do. So I beg you, because I don't have any pride when it comes to this, I beg you to vote for the police board to continue its work.
Thank you very much for your comments. Our next speaker is Olin Miana.
Good morning. My name is Olan Mijana. I'm a member of the Chicago Alliance Against Racist and Political Repression, and I'm here to demand the City Council vote no to arbitration. We in the movement know that this attempt to make the most severe cases of police misconduct be heard behind closed doors is an affront to democracy, transparency, and accountability. We know that this attempt at arbitration is a direct response meant to undermine the huge democratic gains we've made in this city with the passage of our Empowering Communities for Public Safety ordinance, which has given people in this city a democratic say on matters of police accountability like never before. Really, arbitration would be a slap in the face to families and loved ones killed and tortured by police and those of us in the movement who've been fighting to stop police crimes for decades. Remember that this is the city of John Burge and his Midnight Crew and their successor in Brian P. Forberg, the torture cops who have kidnapped young black and brown boys off the streets, boys and girls off the streets, and tortured them into confessing to crimes they didn't commit. Remember that this is the city where in 2012, CPD officer Dante Servin murdered Rakia Boyd for hanging out with her friends at a park. Remember that this is the city where in 2016, CPD officer Jason Van Dyke shot 17-year-old boy Laquan McDonald 16 times, 12 of which happened when he was on the ground. And with 2023 being a year where police in the U.S. killed more people than ever, 1,232 people, you can look it up, just 3 years after people in this city and country hit the streets in record numbers demanding justice for those killed by police, a vote to oppose arbitration is the bare minimum City Council can do to show they stand on the side of justice and accountability. So again, I implore City Council, oppose arbitration, all power to the people.
Thank you for your comments. Our next speaker is Nino Brown.
Peace. Good morning.
Good morning.
My name is Nino Brown. I'm a member of Healthy Hood and the Party for Socialism and Liberation. I'm also a former teacher, and I've lost students to gun violence, friends and family to police violence, and this is a struggle that I've been fighting my entire life. The facts are clear. We have needed fundamental change in how policing is done in this city and in this nation for decades. The working class people of Chicago are sick and tired of old policies that do not work to empower them, but to disempower them. The people of Chicago are tired, especially of those of us in the black community who have been victims of this police state, of raids, unlawful stops, excessive use of force, and the list goes on. But let's zoom out here. Officers have killed at least 1,232 people last year, which was the deadliest year for homicides by law enforcement in over a decade. And the vast majority of these people are poor and working class people. Do the police protect and serve them when they take their lives? What are we talking about today? Arbitration. It's a matter of basic democracy. Should the public have transparency and accountability over the police who have the right to take our lives and our property? But yet on December 13th, the City Council approved the new police contract, which doubled the annual pay raises for scheduled cops over the next 2 years. And we know that the police are some of the highest paid workers in the city, and they are supposed to be accountable to the public if they claim to be public servants. The police, which don't solve crimes, they respond to it in many ways, end up being criminals themselves as they murder Laquan McDonald, Adam Tolino, and so many others. And I say, if you want to end crime, you have to end the causes of crime. Crime is a consequence of a failed social order. If you want a safer Chicago, vote for transparency. The so-called union of rank-and-file officers, they want to contest firings, long suspensions in private instead of doing it in public. We intend to continue to push for as many eyes and ears to pay attention to the matter of policing in our city. In the United States, it's rare that a crime report leads to the police arresting of a suspect who is then convicted of a crime. And according to the Chicago Reporter, the data shows that in reality, about 11% of all serious crimes result in arrest, and about 2% end in conviction. If I used to teach, if I did my job 2% of the time, I would be fired. I would be held accountable. So no other public sector union has these measures in their contract. The police are not a part of the working class. They are a bludgeon used against the working class. It's the basic history of Chicago. What they get from arbitration or negotiation with city lawyers can't be overturned by a simple majority of the city council. It requires a 3/5 of all city council members. And that's a result of pro-cop mayors. But that day is ending. It's ending with the movement for police accountability. We hope it ends with Brandon Johnson and the progressive movement in the city. And I say to you that we demand true accountability now. All power to the people. Justice for every single person who's been victims by police brutality, gun violence. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much for your comments. Our next speaker is Dave Gelfand.
Good afternoon.
Good morning.
My name is Dave Gelfand. I serve as both a homeowner and a property manager at a 176-unit building located on Clinton between Lake and Fulton. I am reaching out today to express deep concerns of myself, the residents, the businesses in our neighborhood regarding the current state of affairs on our block. Having managed the building for 17 years, I've witnessed concerning escalation of issues in our area. While there have always been homeless people and sporadic crime, the situation has now reached a critical point characterized by rampant gang activity, drug dealing, and other criminal behavior. What was once a place the homeless sought shelter has transformed into a dangerous drug encampment, both with drugs, individuals armed with weapons, and responsible for multiple deaths over the past year. The prevalence of gang graffiti, drug marking territories on our buildings, and ever-present risk to residents and the businesses have created an untenable situation. Residents have moved out, units listed for sale at an unprecedented rate for this time of year, and leases have been broken. Businesses are struggling to survive as patrons avoid the area out of fear for their safety. The pervasiveness of open needles, an open drug market, and the sight of individuals overdosing and dying on our sidewalks have been disturbingly common occurrences at all times of the day and night, as residents are walking their dogs, their children, and otherwise navigating the neighborhood. While I commend the efforts of Alderman Riley and Alderman Conway and their staff in addressing the neighborhood concerns through weekly site visits from Streets and Sanitation, I stand before you today urging the mayor's office to take decisive action. The current state of affairs is unacceptable, and there is a risk every day the city fails to act. Let me be clear, our plea for action is not a condemnation on homeless. We support efforts to provide resources and assistance to those in need. However, individuals occupying the encampment are not merely homeless. They are drug dealers and addicts who have repeatedly refused offers of housing and assistance. It is evident that the current approach is insufficient in addressing the specific issue. The city's policy of enforcing the now sunsetted Bryan Agreement to protect the rights of the unhoused has converted into a barrier for the removal of this drug encampment from the public way. These tent encampments have been largely commandeered by those dealers who have a vested interest in keeping the encampments in place as a thriving market for narcotics, which currently is under the protection of the city. This approach allows predatory criminal abuse by the unhoused population at this location, which now poses a real danger to our protecting the unhoused and is in fact leading into an environment where there's good intent being hijacked by criminal elements that endanger the homeless as well as law-abiding citizens of this neighborhood. We implore the mayor's office to implement immediate measures to address the drug epidemic plaguing our neighborhood.
Mr. Gelfand, thank you very much for your comments. However, your time has expired. Our next speaker is David Lincoln.
Hello, members of council. My name is Mr. David Lincoln. I just want to say give y'all a brief information on who I am. I'm a torture survivor. I was wrongly convicted back in 1982. I was a kid, 15 years old. I was kidnapped from one project to another project and beaten, tortured, then sent to the police station. But I say this to say this: most of you aldermen that's here, y'all already know what's going on with this corrupted police. We got people in jail that we still fighting to get out because of John Burgess. Sometimes I don't even like talking about it. You know, I was wrongly convicted, I was tortured until something that I didn't do, and they still looking for the gun now. It's 1982. I was a kid, 15 years old. I'm 52 years old now, just retired from streets and sanitation. And I asked all the aldermen to do y'all job. They been getting away with this for years. We still fighting brothers, innocent people in jail right now, that we fighting for right now. I love you all. But I say that to say this, we need, when stuff happens, when people get killed by the Chicago policemen, everybody want to talk about transparency. You know, that's out of it. You know, we need a better board and a better, man, you know what, sometimes I don't even like talking about it because it takes me all the way back, like it's happening right now. You know, we asking the committee to vote no because it seems like they say serve and protect. They protect themselves and they serve us. And all this killing that's been going on with the Chicago police officers and they getting away with outright murder, it don't make no sense. Excuse me, y'all gotta excuse me. I'm not used to talking about this here because I get emotional, but bear with me. Also, I'm a member of Chicago Alliance. And also, I'm also a political prisoner. God bless you all.
Thank you very much for your comments. Our next speaker is Frank Chapman.
Good morning, everybody.
Good morning.
David is also a member of the Chicago Alliance Against Race and Political Repression. Those are the people that we work with. Those are the members of our organization. But I want to talk about accomplishments. This body, this city council, a few years ago, voted, if I recall correctly, 33 votes for and 13 votes against. Empowering communities, public safety. That was an historic achievement. It was reported in all of the major newspapers across the country as a historic achievement. So I'm not just talking about my opinion. Law professors, Chicago community organizations, everybody applauded this as an advancement. Now, we don't need that undermined. We don't need to take a step backwards. And that's exactly what we would be doing if we go with this arbitration. So I'm going to encourage all of you to vote no on it. Take the stand that you took originally. And that was a stand to give our people in the community a democratic option to say who polices their communities and how their communities are policed. We voted for transparency. That's why we have a commission now. That's why we have district councils, elected district councils, so that it can be out in the open. Nobody who's charged with a crime is allowed to negotiate in private. So why should a police officer? We need to know what you're doing because Chicago has lived under police tyranny long enough. We crossed rivers of blood to get to where we're at right now in terms of our democratic rights. And we're not going to give this up for anybody. So So we're going to continue to fight for that. And once again, I encourage you to vote no on the arbitration. We don't need a secret chamber justice. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much for your comments. Our next speaker is Zoe Lee.
This whole system is rigged, so it really don't even matter. But I know you aren't real fond of the police, and you're definitely entitled to that because sometimes I'm not either. However, ShotSpotter is something that you should not get rid of after the DNC convention. That's probably not going to make it here because Biden and Harris are not getting back in office unless they find black Americans reparations. ShotSpotter helped find the killers of Officer Preston and helped put a white supremacist like Alexander Podgorny, who is currently out on bond and was found in Inglewood with a shotgun, 3 handguns, an AR-15 style semi-automatic rifle, hundreds of rounds of ammunition, and a hatchet. Since you refuse to put money back in the community, or if you do, it has to do with the illegal immigrants, like finding $17 million to feed them because you went to a few black restaurants, we are supposed to be happy. When it's been 3 to 5 illegal mass evictions in our communities, black families are being evicted every day across the street at the Daily Center and can't get any rental assistance, but you're focused on making a promise on ending ShotSpotter. Why? So you can use that money to continue to help the illegals in the Latino community? I mean, you're at almost $1 billion, and our communities still look like a war zone. I will tell you this, these kids are going to continue to come downtown and up north, and it's going to get worse because they're going to join the Venezuelans, and it's going to be a time because you care nothing about these kids, and I've reached out to a few older people as well because other than y'all playing with my generational wealth and the wrong black family, I actually have compassion and love children, and they are hurting and need attention and money. I'm not sure if you're going to go back to Jason and Tony and see what the next orders are since you want to be a social media influencer so bad, but I would stop listening to them because Tony needs to worry about why people can go into the deeds office and change deeds around with no identification or nothing. And Jason doesn't need to advise anyone but his mother. Instead of making sure Starks is going to court cases to make sure that I stay out of city council meetings for almost 3 months, it's a genocide right here in our communities. Cease fire. Happy Black History.
Thank you very much for your comments. Our next speaker is Rhonda Smith.
Hello, my name is Rhonda Smith. I am a member of the Chicago Alliance Against Racist and Political Repression. I'm here to ask that you vote no to arbitration. It is not a good thing, and we all know it. You all should know it. It's not a good thing. I just want to say, for years and years and years, there have been racist police to join the academy. We all know that. When you see police officers, they don't have racist painted across their face. You don't know. You just see people. You just see people. So when they've been charged, when they do misconduct, it's only right that they be held accountable. We're human. We're human. Every community, everybody in every community, we're human. Police are supposed to serve and protect us. And when they commit misconduct, they should be held accountable. I shouldn't have to keep repeating this. You all should feel this. It's not right. It's not right. We've seen it through the years. We've seen them get off of murder. I mean, it's on camera. You look at George Floyd. This whole world saw that. And there are so many incidents where this happens. So they should be held accountable. That should go without saying. It should go without saying. We know that police officers are human too, and that's why when some of them, by whatever way, are made to become racist, For one, they shouldn't be police officers if they can't be fair. And for the other, we know that people have issues. And if you discover, if they really look at themselves and say, hey, I'm not treating people equally, I'm not doing right, then you should leave. You shouldn't be a police officer. So this is a way that there should be held accountable. The community has spoken. You all hear it. You hear it from us. We've spoken. So I've got more time, but still, it's wrong. Please vote no to arbitration. We don't want any behind closed doors deals where bad cops get off. Stop covering up for your partner. You know that they're racist and they're doing wrong. Stop covering up. Thank you.
Thank you very much for your comments. Your Honor, there are no further speakers who have timely signed up for the public
Thank you very much.
period.
Thank you to all our public speakers. As set forth in the letter calling for the special meeting, the only item up today for consideration and a vote is an ordinance setting the date and time for the next regular meeting of the City Council for February 15th, 2024, 11:30 a.m. Alderman Mitchell.
Mr. President, I've handed up an ordinance to the clerk setting the date and time of the next meeting.
Thank you very much. Madam Clerk, please read the ordinance. Okay.
The next regular meeting of the City Council, City of Chicago shall be held on Thursday, February 15, 2024, beginning at 11:30 a.m. in the Council Chamber on the second floor in City Hall, 121 North LaSalle Street, Chicago, Illinois. Any other ordinance setting the date and time of the next regular meeting of the City Council is superseded by this ordinance. Section 2. The ordinance shall take effect and be enforced from here and after its passage. Gregory Mitchell, Alderman, 7th Ward.
Thank you, Alderman Mitchell.
Mr. President, I move passage of the ordinance.
All those in favor signify by saying aye. All those opposed signify by saying nay. Independent of the chair, the ayes have it. Alderman, on the motion to reconsider.
Mr. President, motion to reconsider the vote.
All those in favor signify by saying aye. All those opposed say nay. All right, the motion fails. So the next regular meeting of the City Council will be February 15, 2024, 11:30 a.m. instead of February 16, 2024, 10 a.m. The chair recognizes Alderman Cardonia.
Mr. President, I would like to be present for quorum purposes.
Please add Alderman Cardonia to the quorum roll call. Was Alderman Sigcho Lopez also added? The chair recognizes Alderman Sigcho Lopez.
Thank you, Mr. President. I think I was added, but just for the record.
Very, very good. Thank you very much. Alderman Mitchell on a motion to adjourn.
Mr. President, there being no further business for this body, I move that we adjourn.
Hearing no objection, so ordered. This meeting is adjourned. Just going to take a 3-minute pause so that the technology can reboot.
Recording stopped.
I don't think so. I opened it, but they have to register. Yeah. That's what I'm saying. So.
For the new meeting? Ready?
I have it ready.
You have it ready?
Yeah, I mean.
Okay, perfect.
Recording in progress.
Okay, City Council members, if you can please look at your e-device and sign in to the City Council meeting for February 15th at 11:30 a.m. We will begin a new City Council meeting, so you need to log into your e-device for the City Council February 15th, 11:30 a.m. meeting in order to be counted for quorum. Please hit refresh and log into City Council February 15th, 2024, 11:30 a.m. It is open right now. Please open into that new meeting so you can be recorded as a quorum on the roll call when the meeting begins. You good? Okay, you are in the right screen. Once you've entered into the City Council, when the quorum is called and the mayor gavels in, it will pop up to vote, but you are in the right screen. Just make sure you're in the new meeting. Just make sure you're in the new meeting, and it will pop up when we gavel in.
The council will come back to order. Madam Clerk, please take a quorum roll call.
The quorum is now open. The quorum is now open. Please raise your hand if you need help with your e-device. Please mark yourself present. The quorum is now open. I will now take a voice vote for those who have not voted using the e-device. Alderman Robinson, not present. Alderman Hall. Alderman Hall is present. Alderman Harris, not present. Alderman Mosley, not present. Alderman Rodriguez. Alderman Rodriguez is present. Alderman Scott, not present. Alderman Cicho Lopez. Alderman Cicho Lopez is present. Alderman Wagaspack. Oh, present. Alderperson Rodriguez Sanchez. Alderperson Vasquez. Alderperson Lawson, not present. Alderman Vasquez, not present. Alderperson Haddon, not present. Your Mayor, we have a quorum.
Thank you very much, Madam Clerk. There are 42 members present. We do have a quorum. There are a number of alders who have requested to participate in today's meeting remotely. Reasons stated by Rule 59, Alders Robinson, Harris, Mosley, Scott, Rodriguez Sanchez, Lawson, and Haddon. And I'm sorry, okay, with the exception of, we'll remove Lawson. So Robinson, Harris, Mosley, Scott, Rodriguez, Sanchez, and Haddon. Can I get a motion to approve their remote participation? It's been moved so that they can be added to the quorum. Thank you very much. All those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye. Any opposed signify by saying nay. In the opinion of the chair, the ayes have it. Madam Clerk, please mark the various alders participating remotely as present on the quorum call. Let's stand, please, for the Pledge of Allegiance.
And Alderperson Lawson, I have you on record being present in chambers.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Please remain standing for the invocation which will be delivered by Alderman David Moore.
Thank you, Mayor. We bow our heads, please. Precious Father, as we step to your throne of grace, I ask that you first forgive us for our sins and our shortcomings, O Lord. Look beyond our faults and see our needs, O Lord. As we come to petition you, O Lord, to just have mercy, have grace, and give us direction as we do the will of the people, O Lord, as we fight and work for the people, Lord, and not ourselves, O Lord. Let us keep the people in front, oh Lord. Let's focus on them, oh Lord, so that we can make sure that the city of Chicago is a better city, oh Lord. I ask that you cover each and every alderman in this council, oh Lord. Cover their families, oh Lord. Give them a peace of mind where they can make the right choices for their communities, oh Lord. We ask that you put a hedge of protection around our mayor, oh Lord, and give him direction, oh Lord, that he listen to you first before anyone else in his decision-making, oh Lord. So as we come before this body, O Lord, we want to make sure that we're listening to the residents of this great city, O Lord, and that we provide the services, the resources, and the policies that they want to see. In the mighty name of Jesus, we pray. Amen.
Amen. Thank you. You may be seated. This is the portion of the meeting for public comments.
The council will now begin the public comment period, which is limited to a maximum of 30 minutes. Each speaker is limited to 3 minutes. Speakers cannot yield or transfer their time to another speaker. Any written comments that have been submitted will be posted and made available for aldermanic review. Our first speaker today is Olan Majano.
I didn't have a speech prepared for this, so I'm going off the dome here. Recently, I'm Olan in the Chicago Alliance Against Racist and Political Oppression. Recently, we lost a comrade of ours by the name of Shasta Jones. Shasta was a fighter. She loved the people deeply. And she was on the front lines of the fight for police accountability and community control. She was an instrumental part. She was a leader. And if Shasta was here today, Shasta would be up here speaking and also adding her voice to the chorus, demanding that City Council vote to oppose arbitration. And so I'm here on behalf of Shasta. I'm here on behalf of our organization, her family, all of her loved ones, telling City Council oppose arbitration. So thank you.
Thank you very much for your comments. Our next speaker is John Cantazera.
I'm going to talk super fast because I got a lot more than 3 minutes to say, but I want to start with pointing out, you see all the empty chairs here? They all got your marching order. They all got up and walked out because they didn't want to hear me speak because they knew I was speaking at this. That's pretty disgusting transparency and democracy, but that's just what you've turned this chamber into, us versus them mentality. But let me educate some of you aldermen from 50,000-foot view of what arbitration is and how we got here today, because I think at least 10 of you are what's going to decide this decision one way or the other. Arbitration, and this body, this city of Chicago, was the one who helped pick Ed Benn as an arbitrator. Interest arbitration was granted to police and fire in lieu of the ability to strike. The process is very simple. Because the previous administration refused to negotiate a full contract, we were forced to break it up into 2 segments. That second segment was never done under Lightfoot, and it certainly wasn't getting any movement here. So we were forced to go to arbitration. The list of arbitrators is 7 deep. The city got to strike 3 arbitrators from that list. We got to strike 3. Ed Benn was the last man standing. They knew Ed Benn's position on arbitration for termination cases was rock solid. He had done it several times in different jurisdictions over many years. So if they were so hell-bent on this not becoming reality, then the city should have struck Ed Benn from ever being one of the arbitrators possible. But they didn't. So they are as culpable as anybody when Ed Benn makes this decision. Ed Benn's decision, I will remind you, is grounded in 45 years of legal expertise in labor law. This is all about law. There's a lot of emotion about police conduct, about police murders. Again, murders are adjudicated in a criminal court. This is about discipline. The police board, there's a lot of fallacies also about transparency. The police board deliberates in closed session. You had the new president of the police board standing here last month telling you about the difference in now and as opposed to in the past about how officers are basically getting exonerated because they knew this was coming down. They knew their days were numbered about having the sole authority about deciding these cases, so they started being more fair. But I'll just leave you with this simple caveat of why we're here today with this proposal specifically. We had the ability to opt out of this agreement, which is what we did. But when you go to 26th and Cal, any murder, a detective who investigates a murder is put on the stand and have to answer for their investigation on why they did something or why they didn't do something. Our members have never had that ability at the police board to bring in a COPA investigator or internal affairs investigator to put them in a witness chair to testify on why they did something or why they didn't. The hearing officer has every single time refused that motion, period. That is not transparency. That is not a fair process. That is all we have ever asked for. You do have a legal obligation to the law. If you don't like the law, you don't get to say, I don't like the law, I'm going to ignore it. You have to go and change it in Springfield. We're willing to have that fight too if you want. But do your duty, do your oath to uphold the Illinois Constitution, and labor law is part of that law and Constitution. If you vote no, you worry about the squeaky wheels, we'll be coming for your chairs.
Thank you very much for your comments. Our next speaker is Neil Reitzaw.
Hello. Thank you for
letting us speak here. I'm with the Industrial Workers of the World. That is a revolutionary industrial union. We're associated with Antifa, so we oppose those fascists on the Chicago police force too. We believe in organizing the unorganized. An injury to one is an injury to all. All working class people need to stick together. I don't think you're going to find very many labor unions that believe a police labor union is real. It's absurd concept. None of the labor union organizers really consider the police union to be valid. The whole idea of the police in the first place, they're union busters and slave catchers. That's the history of the police in this country. So to think that a labor union of police officers could be part of the working class movement is just an obscenity. The function of the police is to serve and protect the 1%. Our union urges people to vote no on the closed-door arbitration. There's nothing just about it. Working class people stick together. Remember where you came from, you ward representatives here.
Thank you very much. Our next speaker is John Johnson.
I'm John Johnson. I have a simple idea. It's very easy. You can't hear me? Okay. I have a very simple idea. It's very easy. And I do believe it will save some lives. The idea is to fight against fear in this way. Anything electronic can be traced. So if you call 911, it can be traced. If you call 311, it can be traced. My proposal is have a lockbox in City Hall on a floor without a camera, where if someone has knowledge of a crime, where someone knows the name of someone that has killed someone, they can drop that note in the box, do not sign, without fear of retaliation. Because to tell the people to go to somebody's door and say, well, who did it? That's a little ridiculous because people want to live too. So have a drop box somewhere in City Hall, not on the first floor because somebody might see them walking in, and not in the neighborhoods. Have a drop box. They could come right there, write down the name anonymously, put it in the box, and go about their business without fear of retaliation. The reason why so many people can do what they do, they're not worried about retaliation. No one's going to say anything. And I don't blame them. You know, we all like to live. But the thing is, things have to change. Chicago is getting more crowded now, and we're going to need someone to put stuff in that drop box. Thank you. That's all I need. All right.
Thank you very much for your comments. Our next speaker is Anthony Prewitt.
Good afternoon, distinguished members of the council as well as Mayor Johnson. This is my first time here, so I pray that the words that come through my mouth be those that have been anointed through me. In the great words of Frederick Douglass, the father of the Negro American freedom movement, once said, if there is no struggle, there is no progress. Power concedes nothing without demand. I'm a little more Martin than I am Malcolm. The young people are more Malcolm. Be afraid, be very afraid. Dr. King once said, we must work to assert our demand by means of the ballot, by admonishing them, by the power of love and wisdom will always, always overcome the self-destructiveness of hate and undying bitterness. We do not need to hate while we figure this out. We don't. Someone has to have the sense enough to meet hate with love. So many doors close in our face. And what do we say? The problem can't be solved, right? But, well, I'm here to tell you, we solve more complicated math equations. Hate can be solved. However, the table needs more seats for the voiceless to be heard. and especially the youth. I currently have a child who unfortunately does not attend CPS. He's at a private school where he, my wife, and I are experiencing racial and social economic biases, and it seems to be a problem when a man with a year-long tan speaks his mind, and ever so eloquently, my voice is being pushed down. I told this gentleman I saw my mother get raped when I was 4 years old by the police officers. I said, "Sir, can you tell me sorry?" He said, "Well, I didn't do that." "Well, you're the head of it." "I'm the head of my family. And the head of this world is God Almighty. And God sees all. But the devil doesn't see all. I vote no. Because we need to have transparency. This is America. Let's not forget what the Constitution says. The Declaration of Independence. These are words that were written hundreds of years ago. Because my people have been enslaved for over 224 years. Now, we have a problem because a lot of people are getting paid under the table. Well, let's go ahead and get rid of that table. We need equality, not just for some, but for all. Because guess what? It's just going to get worse because this city is the center of the world. We've got everything we need right here, and it's getting crowded. And guess what? In the next 5 years, it's going to get even more crowded. What are we going to do? Our transportation system is flawed. Roosevelt, why do I look up and see concrete falling? Oh, my. What happens when that one falls down? That's a big lawsuit. So let's make sure that we go arm in arm and work together. Now, Mayor Johnson, I was told you're from the West Side. Let's not forget where we're from. I'm from Chicago. I was born in heaven, but I landed in Chicago. Thank you.
Thank you very much for your comments. Our next speaker is David Melton.
Good afternoon, Mr. Mayor, members of the council, members of the FOP, members of the public. My name is David Melton. I am also a member of the Coalition for Police Accountability and Transparency, as well as co-chair of the Chicago Council of Lawyers Civil Liberties Committee. I want to thank you again for your prior votes rejecting the arbitrator's decision, which erroneously held that serious police misconduct cases could be submitted to arbitration, and ask that you again reject the arbitrator's most recent decision of January 4th to the same effect. The arbitrator's decision is wrong. It fails to give proper weight to the public interest in public safety, in seeing that sufficient processes are in place to assure that bad officers are removed from the police force when they abuse their powers. It also fails to give proper weight to the public's financial interest in seeing that the few bad officers are removed from the police force. Reporting by WTTW last month documents that a relatively small number of bad officers cost the city an average of $1 million every 3 days as a result of their misconduct. Finally, the arbitrator's decision fails to give any consideration to the possibility of enhanced processes in arbitration, such as those employed by the Chicago Police Board, rather than the closed processes associated with private arbitration. The decision is striking in its arrogance in suggesting that public officials violate their oath of office by daring to disagree with the arbitrator's opinion. It also defames our coalition members by accusing us of telling a big lie in stating that private arbitration is conducted behind closed doors, even though the same arbitrator has admitted elsewhere that that is in fact the case. The decision is also inaccurate in threatening the city with excessive damages if it continues to disagree with the arbitrator and has the temerity to challenge that ruling in court. The arbitrator knows that the cost of any such litigation pales in comparison to the amount the city is forced to pay every 3 days on average for serious police misconduct. Overturning the arbitrator's decision is not guaranteed in litigation, that is true, but it is far from the hopeless cause that some have suggested. Courts in 2 other jurisdictions have already rejected similar efforts by police unions in those states to move serious police misconduct cases behind closed doors. The decision here will involve a new constitutional provision that no Illinois court has yet had an opportunity to opine upon, and it involves serious public interests. It is surely worth the cost of the fight. For all those reasons, we again urge you to reject the arbitrator's erroneous opinion and open the way to a court challenge of that opinion. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much for your comments. Our next speaker is David Orlinkoff.
Hi, thank you. Hello, I'm David Orlikoff, a lifelong Chicagoan living on the Northwest Side. Last year, residents elected me to the 14th District Council to fight for police accountability, restorative justice, and evidence-based approaches to community safety. 41 district councilors representing millions of Chicagoans are demanding that City Council again vote no on the arbitrator's proposal, granting CPD officers the ability to get around the police board. It is appalling that right after we've had this historic election, giving people the most voice over safety in their communities, the Fraternal Order of Police is launching this anti-democratic campaign to end transparency and accountability and make themselves above the law. There has been a lot of misinformation thrown around by the FOP and certain members of City Council. These are the 5 facts on police arbitration. Number 1, this ruling is a conflict of interest wherein arbitrator Edwin Benn is seeking to give himself more business to decide police misconduct cases. Number 2, this FOP arbitration decision is unconstitutional at face and violates our federally mandated rights. We've heard from the unaccountable arbitrator Edwin Benn that Illinois state law is more important than Chicago. Well, the Constitution, Bill of Rights, and Civil Rights Act are all more important than the Illinois state law, and Benn is no judge. We've already seen these federal statutes successfully used in court to overturn our local rule on public safety whenever we fall short in the consent decree and numerous other lawsuits, like for millions of racially discriminatory pretextual traffic stops ongoing. Number 3, we pay billions of dollars in police misconduct settlements, raising our taxes and rents. Number 4, arbitrators don't live here and have no responsibility to the city or the people. They are selected by the representatives of police found to have committed severe crimes and misconduct. That's why they already reduce or eliminate punishment for police misconduct 78% of the time, according to the Chicago Office of Inspector General. Number 5, our police must follow the laws set by those elected by the people. If they are doing nothing wrong, then they'll have nothing to hide. No one in this city or state has the power to take away our constitutionally mandated and federally guaranteed rights. Private arbitration will systematically undermine our basic rights that are protected, that have been protecting police officers who have no regard for the law. The people of Chicago demand transparency and accountability. City Council, this is your chance to stand with the people on the right side of history and the law. Anyone voting for FOP abuse today will be held responsible for the rising taxes and rents tomorrow when the superintendent is unable to fire the worst cops on the force who repeatedly commit abuse. Vote for accountability and against arbitration. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much for your comments. Our next speaker is Jasmine Smith.
Yeah, it's me. Hello, everyone. This is activist Jasmine Smith. I am with Chicago Alliance. Everyone has spoke and basically is voicing their opinions and trying to get the aldermen to vote no. It's beyond me that we have to even go through a second vote when they've already voted no to the arbitration the first time. But we are here. And I just want to make it clear. This is what's going on right now has not been publicized. And no, you don't see the mass numbers. But if it don't go our way, we are fighting day in, day out for everybody to be transparent, everybody to be held accountable for their misconduct. A lot of these laws that we face right now to this day was never even built for us, my people, at all. And we're fighting and we're saying enough is enough. So I'm telling you guys that whether you vote our way or you don't, we gonna continue to fight and these numbers are gonna grow. And that's a fact. And he making it about a labor law that protects, y'all heard it many times again, murderers. I'm dealing with wrongfully convicted people, torture survivors by the hands of these cops. I was, luckily by the grace of God, was able to expose Brian P. Forberg on the news, and that pushed and forced him to have to be retired. But had he not made the news, he'll still be one of the highest paid sergeants on the force right now. Has he been charged for his crimes of having over 20 men wrongfully convicted still suffering behind bars? No, he gets to go away with our taxpaying dollars and collect his full pension for now. We have to go day in and day out and fight a system where we have people who has the voices to stand by us now. So I'm telling you guys, your best bet is to stand with us and not against us, because the mass numbers are coming back and people and their families are tired of taking these beatings and whoopings and unjust by the hands of people that's supposed to protect and serve us and that we vote in. So I'm just giving fair notice and warning that it's either going to go the right way or it's going to be wrong, and you guys going to regret for making the wrong decisions.
Thank you very much. Our next speaker is David Gelfand. Our next speaker is David Gelfand. Our next speaker is Hussam. Yes, Mr. Gelfand.
Thank you. I'm Dave Gelfand. Thank you for the opportunity to finish my sentiments. This is regarding the drug encampment on Clinton and Lake and Fulton Streets. The city's policy of enforcing the now sunsetted Bryan Agreement to protect the rights of the unhoused has converted a barrier of the removal of the drug encampment from the public way. These tent encampments have been largely commandeered by those dealers who have a vested interest in keeping these encampments in place as a thriving market for narcotics, which are currently under the protection of the city. This approach allows predatory criminal abuse by unhoused population at this location, which now poses a real danger to our neighborhood. When will the city acknowledge that its current blanket policy of protecting the unhoused is in fact leading to an environment where good intent is being hijacked by criminal elements that endanger those homeless as well as law-abiding residents in this neighborhood? We implore the mayor's office to implement immediate measures to address the drug epidemic plaguing our neighborhood. This includes incessant police presence, unannounced drug inspections with canine units, the development of alternate shelter solutions that prioritize both public safety and the well-being of those in need. Additionally, bi-weekly pressure washing cleaning of the sidewalks to mitigate the unsanitary conditions caused by human waste is imperative. We believe these requests are not only reasonable but necessary for the safety and livelihood of our community. The cost of inaction far outweighs the investment required to implement these measures. We cannot afford to wait any longer for change. Thank you for your attention in this urgent matter. We eagerly await the response and hope to see swift, decisive action from the mayor's office.
Thank you very much for your comments. Our next speaker is Hussam Marajda.
Good morning. My name is Hussam Marajda, the U.S. Palestinian Community Network and Arab American Action Network. First, I'd like to say thank you to the City Council members who voted yes on the ceasefire resolution, and thank you to the mayor for breaking the tie. We know that Chris Jones and the Tribune editorial board and even the governor went after you. It wasn't easy. We thank and commend you all for your courage. I'm here today to encourage alders in this chamber to vote no on arbitration. The City of Chicago voted for a better police accountability body and process last year. We cannot undermine the democratic choices of the people of the city. The City of Chicago must move forward and must set an example for this entire country and entire world. We cannot take 10 steps backwards as a city and allow the FOP and its openly Trump-supporting racist president to influence our democratic decisions. He and his FOP cabal don't care about Black, Latino, Arab, and other people of color in the city. We know who he is and what he represents because we were standing downstairs with him in the speaker's line where he was spewing the same racism that he spews in the press all the time. But this time he was doing it in front of the Black leaders of the Chicago Alliance, including one who had been wrongfully convicted after he was brutally tortured by Chicago cops. Hey, Ray, you don't want to hear this, bro? Okay. That torture happened behind closed doors and led to the conviction. What happened was racist and illegal and took years from my brother's life. Voting no on arbitration will make sure that police crimes aren't swept under the rug, that police crimes don't continue to secretly devastate Black and brown communities in Chicago. As a representative of two important Arab and Palestinian organizations here in Chicago and a proud member of the Chicago Alliance, I ask that you vote no on arbitration. Thank you all for your time.
Thank you very much for your comments. Your Honor, there are no further speakers who have timely signed up for the public comment
Thank you very
period.
much. This concludes the public comment period. For resolutions, we do not have any. Next up, communications.
I, City Clerk Valencia, inform the City Council that all those matters which were considered by the City Council at the regular meeting held on January 24, 2024, required by statute to be published in a book or pamphlet form or in one or more newspapers, were published in a pamphlet form on February 15, 2024, by being printed in full text and printed pamphlet copies of the Journal Proceedings of the City Council of the City of Chicago. I, City Clerk Valencia, also inform the City Council that all those matters which were considered by the City Council at the regular meeting held on January 31st, 2024, and which were required by statute to be published in book or pamphlet form or in one or more newspapers, were published in pamphlet form on February 15th, 2024, by being printed in full text and printed pamphlet copies of the Journal of the Proceedings of the City Council of the City of Chicago. I, City Clerk Valencia, also transmit herewith the following miscellaneous communications requiring City Council action: zoning reclassifications of particular areas which are referred to the Committee on Zoning, Landmarks, and Building Standards. Your Honor, that concludes the reports and communications from city officers.
Thank you very much. Madam Clerk, while you're there, please add Alder Vasquez to the quorum, please.
He will be added. Thank you.
Committee reports, there are none. For matters on the agreed-upon calendar, is it okay if I refer to you, Alderman Mitchell, for the agreed-upon calendar? She's remote. She's here. The chair recognizes Alderwoman Ayers, who is participating remotely. Madam Chair, Alderwoman
Mr.
Ayers.
President, could you ask Alderman
Mitchell's got you.
to-
Yep, he's got
Okay,
you.
thank
Alderman
you.
Mitchell, thank you.
Mr. President, Chairman Harris received from the clerk a listing of items proposed for the agreed calendar consisting of congratulatory, commemorative, and memorial resolutions offered by several aldermen. I move passage of this agreed calendar in the omnibus.
Thank you very much. Hearing no objections, so ordered. For new business, the clerk will call the wards beginning with the first ward.
Zoning amendments which are referred to the Committee on Zoning, Landmarks, and Building Standards. Traffic regulations, traffic control signals, and traffic signs which are referred to the Committee on Pedestrian and Traffic Safety. Grants of privilege on and over the public way, which are referred to the Committee on Transportation and Public Way. And exemptions from physical barrier requirements for commercial driveway alley access for parking facilities, which are referred to the Committee on Transportation and Public Way. Alderman Dowell has a proposed ordinance for approval of a plat of Brownsville by the Lake re-subdivision, which is referred to the Committee on Transportation and Public Way. Alderman Robinson has a proposed ordinance for a transfer of funds within the Fourth Ward ward wage account for the year 2024, which is referred to the Committee on the Budget and Government Operations. Alderman Robinson also has a proposed ordinance for amendment of vacation of the area bounded by East 26th Street, South Lake Park Avenue, East 31st Street, and South Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. Drive by authorizing full release of utility easements previously established, which is referred to the Committee on Transportation and Public Way. Alderman Ramirez has a proposed ordinance for amendment of the municipal code, section 17-6-0403F, by prohibiting permits for intensive manufacturing in planned manufacturing district numbers 8 and 11, which is referred to the Committee on Zoning, Landmarks, and Building Standards. Alderman Lopez and Alderman Silverstein have a proposed resolution to call on Hamas leaders to recognize Geneva Convention Article 3 and immediately and unconditionally release all living and deceased persons held hostage following the October 7th attack on Israel, which is referred to the Committee on Health and Human Relations. Two committees have been called, the Committee on Health and the Committee on Rules. The matter is referred to the Committee on Committees and Rules. Alderman Lopez has a proposed ordinance to congratulate the Taiwanese president and vice president-elect on their election victory, which is referred to the Committee on Economic, Capital, and Technology Development. Alderman Moore has a proposed order for the mayor to remove his decision regarding the sound thinking shot spotter, which is referred to the Committee on Police and Fire. Alderman O'Shea has the proposed ordinance for an honorary street designation as Honorary Tom Papa Hopkins Way, which is referred to the Committee on Transportation and Public Way. Alderman Tabarez has proposed ordinance for amendment of Municipal Code, Section 4-60-023, to disallow additional package goods licenses on portions of West 63rd Street, which is referred to the Committee on License and Consumer Protection. Alderman Cicho Lopez has a proposed ordinance for a vacation in the public way of the alley bounded by South Union Avenue, West 21st Street, South Rubel Street, and South Canal Port, which is referred to the Committee on Transportation and Public Way. Alderman Burnett has a proposed ordinance for amendment of Municipal Code, Section 17-6-0403F, by requiring special use approval for sports and recreation permits in specified use categories, which is referred to the Committee on Zoning, Landmarks, and Building Standards. Alderman Irvin has a proposed ordinance for amendment of Municipal Code, Chapter 7-28, by adding a new Section 7-28-445, establishing a reward program for information leading to conviction or finding of liability for illegal dumping, which is referred to the Committee on the Budget and Government Operations. Alderman Telefiero has proposed orders for the issuance of permits for signboards at 5713 West Chicago Avenue, which are referred to the Committee on Zoning, Landmarks, and Building Standards. Alderman Wagaspack has proposed order for the issuance of permits for signboards at 1916 North Elston Avenue, which is referred to the Committee on Zoning, Landmarks, and Building Standards. Alderman Rodriguez Sanchez has a proposed order for the issuance of permits for signboards at 3737 West Lawrence Avenue, which is referred to the Committee on Zoning, Landmarks, and Building Standards. Alderman Villegas has a proposed ordinance for an honorary street designation as Honorary Coach Larry Lawrence Thurham Way, which is referred to the Committee on Transportation and Public Way. Alderman Mitz has a proposed ordinance for amendment of Municipal Code, Section 4-60-023, to disallow additional package goods licenses on portion of West North Avenue, which is referred to the Committee on License and Consumer Protection. Alderman Nugent has a proposed ordinance for amendment of Municipal Code, Section 4-60-022, to allow additional alcoholic liquor licenses on portion of North Elston Avenue, which is referred to the Committee on License and Consumer Protection. Alderman Lawson has a proposed ordinance for amendment of Municipal Code, Section 4-60-022, to allow additional alcoholic liquor licenses on portion of West Belmont Avenue, which is referred to the Committee on License and Consumer Protection. Alderman Silverstein has proposed ordinance for amendment of Municipal Code, Section 4-60-023, to allow additional package goods licenses on portion of West Toohey Avenue, which is referred to the Committee on License and Consumer Protection. Alderman Riley has a proposed ordinance for amendment of Municipal Code, Section 3-33-030, regarding tax imposed on real property for transfer under $1 million, which is referred to the Committee on Finance. Alderman Riley also has a proposed order for amendment of Municipal Code, Section 9-108-080, regarding Smart Street Pilot Program expiration date, which is referred to the Committee on Pedestrian and Traffic Safety. Your Honor, that concludes the presentation of aldermanic introductions.
Thank you very much for the approval of the journals. Alderman Mitchell.
Mr. President, I'm not aware of any corrections to the journal from the January 24th or January 31st meetings, and move that they be approved.
Hearing no objections, so ordered. For unfinished business, Alderman Mitchell.
So I'm aware of one piece of unfinished business. It was filed by Alderman Yancey and calls for a vote of substitute ordinance 2024-0007332 concerning the adoption of arbitration option in certain police disciplinary cases, which was deferred and published on January 31st, 2024.
Thank you very much. Chair recognizes Alder Yancey.
Thank you, Mr. President. I'd like to defer to Chairman Rodriguez on this matter.
Very well. The chair recognizes Alder Rodriguez.
Thank you, Alderman Yancey and President Johnson. As we all know now, this is an ordinance implementing an arbitration option for Chicago Police Department disciplinary actions in excess of 365 days and also separations. Under the pertinent collective bargaining agreement, this arbitration option will fail if it is rejected by 3/5 of the City Council. I will urge my colleagues to vote no on this matter today. Before we take the vote, I'd like to speak briefly on this item and I request the right to close, Mr. President.
Very well.
As I noted previously, the city's chief labor negotiator has stated that this award, which gives officers a choice between arbitration and the police board, is not justified by the record of the party's history. It is likely to frustrate the city's efforts to bring about fundamental and necessary reforms in the police department. It will sap public confidence in the disciplinary process applicable to police officers, and it will ultimately work to the detriment of our officers covered by their CBA. At the bottom is inconsistent, and at the bottom, this is inconsistent with the interest and the welfare of the public, as required by the Illinois Public Labor Relations Act. In addition, if this item goes into effect, it will mean the police department would be subjected to back pay to officers for the time they were out on leave awaiting a disciplinary decision, regardless of the end results of that disciplinary action. Furthermore, in this supplemental award, the arbitrator accuses members of this body of violating our oath of office merely because we disagreed with his decision. Members of this body are privileged and obligated to express our views and the concerns of the residents of the city of Chicago. We are accused of violating our oath simply because those views differ from the arbitrators. Our vote does not affirm his opinion. Under the pertinent CBA, this item will fail if it is affirmatively rejected by 3/5 of the City Council. I therefore once again urge my colleagues to vote no on the matter. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you very much. The chair recognizes Alderman David Moore.
Thank you, Mr. President. I appreciate Alderman Rodriguez's remarks, and thank you so much for that. I just want to stand up and say, as we deal with these situations, it's very important that we stay focused on what's doing right for the city of Chicago. After this ShotSpotter situation, I got calls from people and saying, you voted for this, you stood with the mayor on this, you need to change your vote and stand with us because he's not standing with you. I don't play politics. I do what's right by the community. And that's why I'm still staying in support of and voting no on this ordinance. But I want us to always make sure we do what's right, not what's politically convenient, expedient, or who's dropping money in campaign coffers. Let's do what's right for the community. And that's why I'm standing with the administration on this ordinance. Thank you so much.
Thank you. The chair recognizes Alder Tabares.
Mr. President, 9 months ago, we all stood on stage and swore an oath before our friends, family, and supporters. In that oath, we swore to protect the constitutions of the United States and the state of Illinois. We have all heard the debate on this issue, but nothing gets around this fact, that the right to arbitration is as clear as day, and it is guaranteed by the state constitution via the Workers' Rights Amendment. Every single argument used to oppose arbitration is based on falsehoods and political theater. To call them arguments is giving them too much credit. Read the police board transcripts, and you will see that they are no more transparent than arbitration. Read the police general orders, and you will see their use of force policy is more restrictive than the general public. The same opponents who want to use tax dollars to gamble a losing hand in court are the same that are always pushing to settle misconduct cases and then explain about all the wasted tax dollars. Some of my colleagues have even bemoaned the ruling, stating that they felt it was undemocratic to not agree with this body. I want to address that. Democracies are empowered by the people to create laws, not break them. And today, we are not voting to create. We are voting to either acknowledge or betray the law and the rights it protects. I want to make this very clear, that it was the democratic process at work when the state drafted the Illinois Public Labor Relations Act 40 years ago. It's illegal for us to break it today, and that's the difference. And it's all smoke and mirrors and emotional slogans to hide and confuse the fact that the law is the law, and it is clear what it says: arbitration shall prevail. And to my colleagues who have a deep anger toward the police, all I can say to you that your vote to deny arbitration is cutting off your nose to spite your face. You are not maintaining a clean political record with your vote. You are violating the law, your oath, and your responsibility to taxpayers. You are starting a process that will end with millions in settlement cash going into the pockets of police officers, even those who should be fired. Nobody in this chamber can claim ignorance to the fact that a vote against the right to arbitration is a vote against workers' rights. It's a cold, hard fact that a vote against arbitration is a violation of our oaths of office by knowingly breaking the state constitution. If you are comfortable with that vote, so be it. But you cannot just shrug your shoulders when asked to justify the wasting of millions in tax dollars on litigation and settlements for the willful and wanted violation of the state constitution. This vote is not about the police. It's about oaths and how much they are worth to you. No excuses, no pain, no spin, just facts. And your vote will tell. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any other alders that wish to speak to this before the chair recognizes Alderman Napolitano?
Thank you, Mr. President. The last 5 years, the last 6 years, we've noticed a movement, an anti-police movement. We've seen it throughout the city, and unfortunately, we've seen it here in City Council. It started 4 years ago, started 6 years ago, but was really pushed about 4 years ago when they wanted to get rid of ShotSpotter and steal that contract and put it towards different pet projects. And now we're seeing it as another tool that we're losing throughout the city. That hurts the entire city. What you're also being told in here today is that when you vote today, that this is a vote on a binding agreement through the CBA, and it'll be enacted, and it'll be in effect, and that it all goes away. That's a lie. Like my colleagues said, arbitration will make the ruling in the end. This goes to the courts, and that will make the ruling in the end, and the city will lose, and once again, we will pay. For all of you that have come in this office or in this body over and over again and said that you're making the best decision for the entire city of Chicago, not just for the point that's going on in the moment and how to save the city some money or to put your money where your mouth is, this is that moment, because this is going to cost the city a lot. And you're willing to take that risk. You're willing to take that risk for political purposes and for agenda purposes. That is what's been going on in here for years now. This isn't a movement for what's right or what's wrong. This is a movement against the police. And it has been that way for years. If you want accountability, how come there isn't this frustration for accountability in neighborhoods that are seeing death tolls rise every single day? That issue is only put on the police. When you have an issue in your neighborhood, you don't call a plumber. If you have a shooting, you're calling the police. Someone had brought up an incident that happened before that went to the courts and was settled on Officer Riamo. Of course, the whole story is not told because it never is, of what happened on that day. And that officer went into a situation where him and his partner were attacked. That's what happened. They were attacked with a baseball bat and a situation rose where lethal force was used. And what had happened with an innocent life that was taken in that moment wasn't what Officer Riyama wanted, wasn't what his partner wanted, but that was the story that was told. And the best thing to do, or the best way that we thought we'd get through it, just fire him. All I constantly hear in here is police are racist, they're anti-black, they're anti-Hispanic, anti-whatever. That is the most absolute nonsense thing I've ever heard in my entire life, because I was on the other side of that radio. When that call comes out, not one single time does that call come out. And does anybody know who's on the other side of that?
Alderman.
I'm not going to stop talking.
Just for a second here.
So, because that's where this goes all the time. When that call comes out and you hear it on the radio, you do not know who's on the other end of that radio. You just go and do your job. You don't know who's asking for help. You don't know who's on the other end.
It's us against the police. It's not us against the police. It's the fucking criminals against us.
Hold on a second. Thank you, Alderman. Just for a second, please. Listen, I understand these are hard conversations for Chicago. Thank you, Alderman, for being patient. Okay? Sergeant at Arms, please restore order there. Respectfully, sir, I'm going to ask that you hold your comments, please, and allow for the Alderman to finish his presentation. If you can, because that's his right. If you continue, I'm going to have to ask you to leave. Alderman Napolitano, if you wish to proceed.
So, what I'm trying to answer for, or what I'm trying to speak for up here, is when that comment's made, and that's the reason why that this movement is going on, and vote no against this, and let's hurt the police as much as possible. Let's steal where we can from, budget-wise. Let's hurt them in the shot spotter. Let's take away from their budget for the year. I've been on the other side of that radio, and never once do they tell me, or told any of the other officers that have been here, such as one of my colleagues, who is on the other side and who is asking for your help. Who's being shot at? Who's being stabbed? Who's being beat within an inch of their life? All they say is go there and help them. What circumstances transpire after that, I'm positive 5,000% is never what that officer wanted when they got there. They didn't go there with hate or malice in their heart. They went there to do what their job is. Does it always work out? In our case, the highest percentages, it does work out. The smallest percentages, it goes the wrong way. And police officers should be held accountable in those situations. But we should not be lambasting the whole department because of that. If you wanted transparency, you created a police board. Where's the transparency with this board? Where's the transparency for the years that this board's been enacted? We should not be making decisions down here right now and talking to some of my colleagues. I'm voting no because I want transparency. When you know in this, and even an arbitrator has voted that this is showing transparency, and even some of you want to say that you're union strong. This is what the unions are given on their ability to vote for a possible contract because we can't strike anymore. The alternative is going to be eventually that the police are going to strike. They might not strike with pickets, they might not be out there marching, and they might not be allowed to, but you're going to see a different type of strike. And you could say so be it, but you're still not going to call the plumber to come help you when you're in trouble. You need to remove the political agenda from this vote today. You need to be removed what letter somebody gave you today to read. You need to start voting on behalf of what is right, what is contractual, what has been voted on by an arbitrator that the city picked. And you need to vote on behalf of how this is going to affect the city of Chicago in the long run when it goes to court and you lose and we have egg on our face because of it. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you. The chair recognizes Alderman. The chair recognizes Alderman Yancey.
Thank you, Mr. President. I want to start by telling a story. In 2011, I was a union organizer knocking doors with some union members on the west side near a high school. When we arrived at the school as it was letting out, we were approached by 3 high school age boys who were heading home at the end of their school day. From behind our group, we heard a voice coming from a loudspeaker attached to a marked police car. An officer was singing a song that sounded familiar but out of place, so it took a minute to name the tune. I'm not really a singer, but indulge me for a moment here. The song goes like this. Here they come, walking down the street. They get the funniest looks from everyone they meet. Hey, hey, we're the monkeys. So these union members that were with me on that day were part of the Great Migration, fleeing from the Jim Crow laws of the South. And these young people, who probably never even saw the show called The Monkees or heard the theme song before, they knew what this officer was saying to and about them. I bet that officer has forgotten all about that day. But 3 generations of black people witnessed this offensive and disrespectful moment. And I doubt any of us have forgotten about it, because I sure haven't. I bring this up because this fight today is about how we hold the police accountable. That officer may still be on the force. He probably mentored dozens of officers since that day. Maybe he's a district commander or trains cadets at the academy. Or maybe he's one of the hundreds of officers who have been accused of misconduct over the last decade. Our fight for a public safety system that is transparent and keeps all of us safe has been a long and difficult fight. One that's bolstered by the Police Accountability Task Force created by former Mayor Rahm Emanuel and led by former Mayor Lori Lightfoot. This push for accountability and transparency is also supported by a federal consent decree. The only way we can create a 21st century public safety system is through an open process. Our current system of dealing with officers who are accused of misconduct, especially those who have committed the most egregious offenses against this city, not just against black people or Latinos, but against this city, isn't perfect, but it's moving towards the desired outcomes. Currently, officers facing suspensions of a year or more or termination currently face the police board. This push to move hearings to arbitration is a step backwards and is a direct response to the reform efforts won and championed by community residents. I'll add that the messaging around arbitration being illegal, I have a problem with that because slavery was legal once. Plessy versus Ferguson said that black people were 3/5 of a person. I don't know if you noticed, but the law doesn't always get it right. It's our jobs as lawmakers to get it right. So for these reasons, I'm voting no against the arbitrator's decision. Thank you.
Thank you. The chair recognizes Alder Vasquez.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. I appreciate that we're having the conversation here. I'd like to start in conversation on things we agree on. We all agree that we want our constituents and all of us want to be able to get home safe when we get home from work. We want our kids to be able to get to school safely. These are priorities. When we talk public safety, that's number 1 for all of us. I say that because I don't accept some of the framing as the conversation's already started here. This is not about being anti-police when you want to see accountability. This is about being anti-people who shouldn't be police in the first place. It is about a small margin of officers who would currently be officers that are up for either a year-long suspension or outright dismissal. I would argue that is not the majority of police officers. Every single one of us works with our commanders. We talk to our officers on the ground. We know they do some of the hardest work in city government. They walk into situations none of us would want to walk into. The reason why I say that is when we're talking about arbitration, we're not talking about them at all, actually. When we're talking about arbitration, we are talking about people who should not be officers in the first place. And I wish that officers fought as hard for this arbitration, or the FOP fought as hard for this, or fought as hard to get rid of bad officers as they fight this hard for this arbitration piece. We would be in much more agreement if we heard that. Yeah, I'll tell you how I know. I'm about to be 45 years old.
Address me, Alderman.
Yes, sorry, thank you, Mayor.
Thank you.
I'm about to be 45 years old. I've been born and raised and grown up in this city. I have never heard an officer call out another officer for things they shouldn't be doing in my whole time as a Chicagoan. I've never heard that officer shouldn't be an officer, that officer should be fired. I heard a whole lot of defense for people who shouldn't be officers, but I've never heard someone say, you know what? That person right there embarrasses our whole police force. They make it more dangerous for all the good officers. and that person should not be on the force. I've never heard that publicly anywhere at all. And so that is why I don't accept the premise. When people want to talk about, hey, this is about oaths, sure. It's also about oath keepers and Proud Boys and people who also are defended all the time, and no one calls them out for not having, they shouldn't be officers. In fact, the only time we found out about officers who were oath keepers was because they admitted to it in arbitration, in closed doors, and then didn't suffer any consequences for admitting it. That is why we found that out, because it happened behind closed doors, not on the police board, not publicly. And that officer was not held to account. I know that because it happened in 40th Ward. It didn't occur. There was no accountability there. When we have people talking about, well, you're going to spend a whole lot of money on these cases, you're going to spend a whole lot of money in lawsuits, everyone's a conservative fiscal hawk when it comes to spending on that. I don't hear the same energy when we spend over $100 million every year on police misconduct settlements. I don't hear that energy about how much dollars we keep spending there and how we need to have accountability, right? So we're not continuing to spend the tax dollars that our taxpayers pay. They don't bring that up, and that's a whole lot more money than we're talking about this case here, right? So spare me this fiscal hawk conversation if you're not willing to have it when we're spending a whole lot more money for misconduct. And again, this is a small margin of officers who shouldn't be officers, not the majority who we all support you do the work to keep people safe, because safety is number one. So the fact that you're going that hard for a small margin that shouldn't be officers is actually more problematic, because if we had a conversation about supporting the good ones and about public arbitration or an actual police board that isn't being gutted right now as we speak, we might have a lot more to agree on that would lead to a safer city. But we're not here having that conversation, right? When we want to talk about accountability, safety, transparency is a part of that conversation. You don't get that when you only have these conversations behind closed doors. Lastly, I'll say this, because people want to make it a labor conversation. That's absolutely fair. I agree, labor unions have the right to arbitration. But I'll tell you this, a plumber's never broken on a door to get into somebody's house. A pipe fitter's never arrested anybody. An electrical worker never shot somebody. No one's ever died because of a carpenter, right? So when we talk about the difference in the role, there should be an understanding at the state level that there's different understandings. It's absolutely right. Officers don't have the right to strike, and that is, in that regard of the conversation, an unfortunate reality, because these are nuanced conversations. But when we talk about the other side of it, they, by virtue of their role, are able to do things other unions can't. They should be held to a different standard with more accountability because of it. So when we're voting for no to arbitration here, it's not because people hate the police. It's not because people want anything to be less safe. It's because it requires nuance to get it right, to have accountability, and to be transparent. Because if you have a transparent process, then when officers, when they make the right calls in situations that aren't so clear-cut, can also make that case publicly so we can understand why they made that call. Doing it all behind closed doors to absolve somebody of any level of accountability is not the right way to do it. It's not public. It's not fiduciary responsible. So that's why I'm voting no on the arbitration. Thank you, President.
All right, thank you very much. The chair recognizes Alder Fuentes. Sergeant at Arms, could you please recognize the individuals that need extra attention, please? Let's make sure that we keep, just a second, Alder. Would respectfully ask now for the fourth time that you all maintain some decorum, please. I do not want to have to clear the public chambers. The chair recognizes Alder Fuentes.
Thank you, Mr. President. And I want to thank my colleagues for allowing us to have a diplomatic debate. Look, we could have different political views and make different decisions and cast our votes differently. That doesn't mean that we have to be divisive. Today, we're talking about a process that should be public, because the Chicago Police Department officers are public servants the way we are public servants. They have the responsibility of caring and protecting people, and therefore, there is a public right and need to make sure they are held accountable in the public eye. I want to talk about just a short story. In the month of October in 2018, I was the Dean of Students at a high school called Dr. Pedro Albizu Campos Puerto Rican High School. That same month, we were watching the verdict of Van Dyke on the Laquan McDonald murder. And I turned on my cell phone in the middle of the hallway to watch that verdict. And a bunch of young men in their classrooms heard the sound coming out of my cell phone and wanted to watch. Many of them walked out of classrooms without permission. Here I am as the dean of students struggling. Should I tell these young men to go back to class, or do they have the right to watch this verdict? And so I sat on the floor with my cell phone, and every young person came out of that classroom to watch that verdict with me. Young black men who have been expelled, pushed, or kicked out of CPS schools are watching a verdict of a young man that attended an alternative school just like they do. And several of them crying when that verdict was reached. Now that verdict was only reached because of a police board. Because of a police board that found that there were officers who exaggerated on the threat that Laquan posed to them that day. There was a police board that did thorough investigation and made sure that those findings were public. That a life of a young black man like Laquan McDonald would be a story that is told and not one that's held up, kept secret behind closed doors. This process is for the most egregious and harmful behaviors of the Chicago Police Department. 99% of the police officers in this room wouldn't even be impacted by a public process that is facilitated by the Chicago Police Board. We are talking about a very small percentage of individuals that make decisions that are expensive at best, fatal at worst. Expensive at best, fatal at worst, on the dime of the city of Chicago. For the record, I don't hate police officers. I despise a system that has allowed for individuals in our city to be unsafe. Today, we have the opportunity to right that wrong, to change that system, to ensure that we are holding police officers accountable at the highest regard, because the citizens of Chicago deserve that much. We could talk about the safety in our communities and addressing violence in our communities and holding police accountable. We have gotten into the bad habit to think that we can't walk and chew gum at the same time. I could be an older person that is addressing the very needs in my community like I do every day. I show up every day, and I could come to council today and vote no on arbitration. You see, we can do both. We can do both. Look, you want to talk about politics? I ran for this seat, born and raised in Humboldt Park. I was 15 and 16 years old, and I made a lot of mistakes. I got into fist fights, stole something to survive. And you know what the FOP did? They printed a mailer with my face. They darkened my skin, changed the color of my eyes, and put me behind bar cells to convince the residents of my ward that I was not qualified for the job. That me, the older person of the 26th ward, was not qualified for the job. You want to talk about politics? The FOP has shown us the work they're willing to do. Today, I will show my constituents the work I am willing to do. And that is transparency, accountability, and the safety of my residents. I will show up every day for them, and today my no vote is doing the same. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you. The chair recognizes Alderman Irvin.
Thank you, Mr. President. Before we had this conversation about the decision on arbitration that Mr. Ben put upon us here, what I see today is what I saw before is essentially a false choice of saying that if you don't do this, than you are against that. Most people know that I wouldn't be here today if it weren't for the 30-some-odd years that my father worked in the Chicago Police Department. But doesn't mean that if we take a position to support the evolution of policing, that we are anti-police. We talk about oaths. We talk about the Constitution. We are representatives here of the people that have sent us here. It is very clear that the people that have sent us here are at issue with the process and a procedure that does not have the same level as what we've seen in the past. Now, granted, as Alderman Yancey pointed out earlier, and I said before, if we don't make any adjustments, the Constitution is a living, breathing document that is subject to change and interpretation. Again, no change in the law. I'm down in Mississippi picking cottons and chains still. No change in the law. Some of you in here wouldn't have the right to vote. The majority of us in here would not have a right to vote. So again, we can't be stuck and so rigid because the document is not a rigid document. It is subject to change. It is subject to being interpreted. And it's clear that our citizens have said to us that they want to see a higher level of accountability because of the challenges of the past. And again, doesn't mean that we are anti of the police, as Alderman Napolitano stated. Yes, we will dial 911 and expect the proper service to be rendered to all of us as citizens of this city. Doesn't mean that we are anti because of the decision that is made today. I respect the FOP. I respect President Catanzaro. We just happen to have a disagreement. He's doing what he's supposed to do. He's supposed to advocate for his members to get the most that they can get for the least. That's the nature of the business. That's the nature of the game. But at the same time, we have a responsibility to advocate for those who sent us here. And those who sent me here say, hey, we want to see the accountability. We want to see a different level, a difference in what's going on and not walk backwards or go behind the closed doors. And again, he's right. There's no way in hell that Edward Benn should have been the one making this decision. Because again, it is very clear of what his views had been. And that's one thing that he and I do agree on. I've had experience with Ben in my previous life. And again, even though that's the way the system played out, we have an opportunity and we have a right to represent our constituents. And it is very clear from the conversations I've had with mine where they stand on this particular issue. So while we are all in some level of disagreement, I think that we will find a way to find a solution that works. And that's why we have courts, that's why we have a legislature. But today is a decision on behalf of the residents of the 28th Ward is to not to support the arbitrator's decision. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you. Seeing no other hands, the chair recognizes Alderman Nick Spazzato.
Thank you, Mr. President. I'm sorry. I thought there was a bunch more people going. So, first I want to start by saying I'm not naive enough to think that what I say or what anybody else here said are going to sway anybody. There's no doubt in my mind you have the 30 votes on this, but I'm still going to have my say. So, and I respect people for what they said. I don't agree with them. Basically, from the public speakers to some of my colleagues, we heard some really, really bizarro stuff. But you have a right to say whatever you want. So that doesn't mean it's the truth or not. Just want to make sure everybody knows the arbitrator, we're going to talk about this particular case, Ben, he was decided on. The FOP didn't pick him and say he's going to be the arbitrator. We, the city, everybody, and the FOP decided on him, okay? You cut him, you got a group, you cut some, he was the last guy left standing. That's the way it usually works with arbitrators. So just want to let everybody know about that. That's how the arbitrator works. I know a lot of stuff's going to be redundant, what you guys heard. So I scratched some stuff, so I'm just want to have my say. In the past, or the last time, which I thought was really unconscionable, we had the police board president and the president of the CCBSA, I call it the CCBSA, came and spoke against arbitration. How wrong is that? You're the police board president and you're speaking against arbitration. That to me is totally unacceptable. Totally unacceptable to have somebody in that position to be speaking against arbitration. You want to talk about deliberating behind closed doors? That is the police board that does that, everybody. If anything, we should be voting out the police board. They're the ones that deliberate behind closed doors. Then they come out with their decision. That's how it works. Once again, the city's chief negotiator, I don't have to say his name. We all know who he was. He mentioned what kind of a terrible idea it was. This would be a steep hill to climb, whatever, how tough it would be to win this. So I'm just reminding everybody of that. And once again, I know we heard some talk about fiscal hawks, and some people try to do their best and some don't, but we do have a financial obligation to the city, people. This could cost us big time. I'm not exactly sure what. I'm not sure how much. We'll have to go through court with this. But once again, it's going to cost us. I just don't know how much. It also pains me that we have some really smart people in here. I'm not one of them, I'll tell you that. But we have some really smart people on both sides of the fence over here. Both sides of the fence. We have 3 lawyers in this group, too. And 2 of you lawyers are voting against this, which I really don't understand. I really don't. It just pains me that 2 lawyers are going to be our no's for this. So that's just really, really tough for me to understand. Mr. President, if you and me can't agree on something and we agree to go to arbitrator to make a decision, that's pretty much binding. We say, okay, we can't agree, we're going to let the arbitrator decide for us. So simple as that, everybody. Many of you said you don't hate the police, but boy, you sure could fool me, let me tell you. So I think the hatred for the police in this council is out of control, and it's just spiraling out of control, and it's just getting worse and worse. So just wanted to say that. Also, once again, the whole labor thing, we claim to be pro-labor. I don't know how you could say you're a pro-labor person, but except for the one union that carries guns because they carry guns and not a wrench or a hammer or something like that, they shouldn't be able to go to the arbitrator. So with that, I just want to wrap up with something, Mr. President. It has nothing to do with this, but it'd be my one chance to say this in public. And nothing to do with this arbitration thing. I just want to say, and it's one thing we all could agree on, that's for sure, that we all want safety for our communities, that's for sure. So why the hell are we getting rid of ShotSpotter and SROs in schools? Terrible idea. So I just want to wrap with that. Let's keep ShotSpotter. Let's keep the SROs. Thank you so much for giving me an opportunity to speak. Thank you, everybody, for what you had to say. And we know what the vote's going to be, but let's get it done and over with. Thank you.
Thank you, Alderman. You are staying, right? The way you were wrapping up, I thought you were going to say, good night, Chicago. All right. The chair recognizes Alderman Ray Lopez.
Good afternoon, Mr. President. Good afternoon, members of the City Council. I think to answer my colleague from the 38th Ward's question, why we're doing this, politics and agendas bring us to where we're at. Before the soul of Chicago was announced, before bringing in the light, before moving Chicago forward 100 years ago, there was a saying, Chicago first, Chicago last, Chicago always. What it meant was that what should guide us in everything we do is this city, what's in the best interest of everyone that calls Chicago home. That leading just for the base, governing just for those who put us in office, and being the chief executive of only whatever gives us 26 votes was not what this city's was known for. We saw the last administration say quite blanketly, I'm only interested in getting to 26, which means overwhelmingly that they were willing to discount everyone else's concerns just to get to the finish line. Oftentimes, getting to the finish line expose some of the most unfortunate hypocrisies in government in this building and in this room. We've heard many arguments for and against why we should start separating contracts and cherry-picking the parts we like in this body and going against what our arbitrator and our employees have negotiated, because apparently we know better here than the people we hired to do this. We are willing to set forward down this path, even though, regardless of views on the FOP, pipe fitters, Teamsters, Amalgamated Transit Union, electrical workers, operating engineers, firefighters, plumbers, and the Lieutenants Association have all stood in agreement in saying this is not the way. But what do they know? They just work here. What do they know? They just live here. And what do they know? We only ratify their contracts in a very unified manner, which, if we're going to start talking about how we discipline them, then they'll be next. Because then all of their disciplinary things should be made public too. There are ways that we could have a discussion about moving forward, and there are ways that we can actually discuss about increasing true public engagement. We created a whole new system that allows for the public to participate, for the public to engage, not just with the police, not just with the city, but by creating district councilors and a whole commission. And I feel more than entitled to critique that because I voted for it in direct opposition to the FOP's request. But I can also tell you that what I've seen since is absolutely disgusting, because of the fact that you have seen this process of participation go from being a means to engage and communicate and connect to being the political pawn of not just police defunders, but abolitionists. People who genuinely believe that there's no reason to have police at all. People who would think that we live in some fairy tale universe where criminals gladly hand over their guns or knives or tools of mayhem when they're caught, that they don't run, that they don't hide in the shadows. I don't know what part of Chicago that is, but I know it's not anywhere where any of us live. We talk about this public process and why people with so much authority and influence and power over us should be held to a standard. And I think that we have seen a willingness to move in that direction by all parties. We just refuse to take people up on that offer for the sake of maintaining the narrative, of maintaining the political posturing, for instilling that propaganda that nobody wants to work together, when we know that has not been the case. And we're also very selective, Mr. President, on when we're willing to tell those with so much power over our lives that we want to be a part of their disciplinary process. Because I have still yet to hear, since we first had this discussion in December, one person in this room take up the cause of the 446 individuals with sexual abuse claims against CTU members and CPS. Not one resolution, not one call for public arbitration, because they, by the way, to remind all of you, can go directly to arbitration first. Nobody knows, nobody here cares, and yet 446 individuals in 2023 alone, 1,800 cases in the last few years, and yet even some of the most basic of reforms that were learned from what we saw with the Catholic Church have been ignored by that body. A one strike and you're out policy? Nope, not for our kids. Removal from the school until investigation is over? Not going to have it. A public and easily accessible website of all offenders? That's crazy talk in this city. the hypocrisy of what we're discussing today, Mr. President, the sheer outrageous, nonsensical discussion that we only want hypocrisy against one of those individual work groups that we claim have so much power, while ignoring what they'd be willing to destroy in our own families. Shame on you. Shame on all of you who refuse to have that conversation. There are things that we can do better, always. There are things that we should live up to, absolutely. But we are failing because every catchphrase that we throw out there is just designed to be the next banner for someone's reelection, for someone's next ad. What we have forgotten in this room, in this building, is that what should motivate all of us is the city of Chicago. Doing what is best for all of Chicago is what we were sent here to do. Representing our communities, but coming together for those difficult decisions and conversations that we have to have, not only here, but in our communities, where we can explain the difference between a poor 13-year-old being shot and a gang recruit being chased. Because those are two wildly different scenarios. And when we are unwilling to stand before our own constituents and say, sometimes there's only one outcome, it is true. And we have to be leaders enough to say that. But we are choosing now to hide behind the politics. We are choosing to pick, in a society that's already struggling, who we are putting our faith in. And I think, as we're thinking about this, and thinking about what we've heard over the last week, and as my colleague said, our colleague said, the march towards removing technology from CPD didn't start the other day. And no matter what happens Friday, it will not end, because there's still plenty of technology that everyone finds racist. We've seen where even this trend is continued outside of our own city, where the extreme criminal enabling dogma says that something as innocuous as a ring doorbell is now wrong to protect yourself. And memorandums of understanding are being canceled all across this country now, because God forbid you use Ring to catch a criminal. What we are seeing, ladies and gentlemen, is that we are choosing a side. We're choosing a side that we're putting our faith in. We're choosing a side that we think is going to do right by the neighborhood. And I guarantee you, every one of them's in here. Every person that's listed in this book, in all of your neighborhoods, some of you may know, are anxious by what you're doing, ecstatic that you're willing to cut them by the knees and let them flounder, to not hold them accountable so that they can run their course, live their life, and continue to propagate the generational violence in our city, in our neighborhoods, unchecked. That's the side you've chosen. That's the side that you are standing with when you continue to allow every avenue aimed at helping communities fall to the wayside. Remember that as you vote today. Remember how you will explain that to your constituents when there's no one showing up to it because nobody called. Yes, we'd love 911 calls to be answered, but we also know no one makes those calls anymore. Know what you're doing and prepare for it accordingly, because I guarantee you, your residents will be prepared as well. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you very much. The chair recognizes Alderman Conway.
Thank you, Mr. President. We have, I know a lot of folks don't think, we have great police officers in this city. And I had the pleasure of working with hundreds of them as an assistant state's attorney here. And folks that we count on every day to keep us safe and enforce our laws. And the trust between the police and the community is paramount. Now, I mentioned I worked with hundreds of great police officers, but I also charged, tried, and convicted 3 of them. Folks that had jeopardized that sacred trust. And I will say, I had many police officers come up to me after doing that saying, Bill, thank you for doing that. They were making us all look bad. And it is important that we maintain that trust. And because of that, it's important that we have transparency and allegations of serious police misconduct. If it's a closed-door hearing and a police officer gets a light sentence, people are going to think the fix is in. If they all get punished too strictly, the police themselves won't trust the process. And that's why I'm voting no here. I have read the arbitrator's decision. I hope that you all have as well. And I will be frank, this is an area where maybe the law and public policy are incongruous. And it's clearly an area that should have been contracted. But going forward, regardless of how you vote today, I would encourage us all to work with our legislators in Springfield and work with the FOP so that we can make adjustments here so that public policy and the law are aligned. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you. The chair recognizes, thank you. The chair recognizes Alderman Hopkins.
Thank you, Mr. President. We've heard some discussion today about the difference between plumbers and electricians and police officers. There was one key difference that was left out in that discussion. Plumbers and electricians don't have to wear bulletproof vests to work. Plumbers and electricians have the right to see a potentially dangerous situation and say, I'm not going to go in there. I'm going home. I'm going home to my family before I'll go in that building. Plumbers and electricians don't wake up every day with the knowledge that their job, their duties, potentially require them to engage in a dangerous physical confrontation with a violent person where lives can be lost. Police officers wake up every day with that knowledge. It's part of the oath they took to serve and protect. And sometimes those dangerous confrontations end badly. Sometimes they end with loss of life, sometimes innocent life. And it's in those situations that an analysis of the facts of what happened, it's not always clear, and it needs to be determined, and it needs to be done fairly, and decisions need to be made in light of those facts, and those decisions need to be made fairly. And that is the definition of arbitration. That's what an arbitrator's job is to do, is to determine the facts and apply them fairly. I support our police, and I support arbitration for them, as every other organized union workforce enjoys in this state. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you. Thank you very much. For the close, I've given my word to allow the alderman to have the final word before we vote. The chair recognizes Alderman Rodriguez.
Thank you, Mr. President. I appreciate my colleagues today for the words and for the passion. And we do have a great city. And I do believe that our efforts to transform and make our public service more transparent are very valuable. I appreciate Alderman Yancey for your leadership on this, and your words today have moved me, as I think they have moved others. And I'd like to now renew my motion for a roll call vote on the ordinance that would provide for a closed room arbitration option for certain CPD disciplinary actions. And I urge my colleagues to join me in voting no.
Thank you very much, Alderman Rodriguez. And to be clear, a no vote is a vote to reject the ordinance that includes the arbitration provision of the contract to establish a closed room arbitration option for certain CPD disciplinary actions. A yes vote is a vote to accept the arbitration award. In this instance, a 3/5 vote is required to reject the matter. Clerk, thank you, Madam Clerk, please provide the e-vote option so that our alders can cast their vote.
The voting is now open. Please mark yourself, mark your vote. If you have any issues, please raise your hand. Okay, I will now call on those who have not marked their votes. Alderperson Robinson.
Alderman Robinson is a no.
Alderman Robinson is a no. Alderwoman Harris.
No.
Alderwoman Harris is a no. Alderman Mosley.
No.
Alderman Mosley is a no. Alderwoman Scott.
Alderwoman Scott is a no.
Alderwoman Scott is a no. Alderperson Rodriguez Sanchez.
No.
Alderperson Rodriguez Sanchez is a no. Alderman Spizzato. Alderman Spizzato is a yes. Alderwoman Haddon.
No.
Alderwoman Haddon is a no. Voting is now closed.
There are 32 nays, 18 yeas. This motion fails. Alderman Rodriguez for the motion to reconsider.
I move to reconsider this vote, Mr.
All
President.
those in favor of the reconsidering of this vote signify by saying aye. All those opposed say no. All right, the motion fails. The chair recognizes Alderman Mitchell. Are there any other further items?
Mr. President, I am not aware of any further items or of unfinished business.
Very well, thank you very much. For miscellaneous business, the chair recognizes Alderman Mitchell.
Except for the ordinance setting the date and time of the next meeting, I'm not aware of any miscellaneous business.
Very well. For the date and time for the next meeting, chair recognizes Alderman Mitchell.
I've handed up to the clerks an ordinance setting the date and time of the next meeting.
Thank you, Mr. Clerk. Please read the ordinance.
Be it ordained by the City Council of the City of Chicago, Section 1, the next regular meeting of the City Council of the City of Chicago shall be held on Wednesday, February 21st, 2024, beginning at 10 o'clock a.m. in the Council Chamber on the second floor of City Hall, 121 North LaSalle Street, Chicago, Illinois. Section 2, this ordinance shall take effect and be enforced from and after its passage.
The chair recognizes, thank you, the chair recognizes Alderman Mitchell.
Mr. President, I move passage in the omnibus.
Hearing no objections, so ordered. Alderman Mitchell for the omnibus.
Now, I move that matters in the omnibus for this meeting and for the January 31st, 2024 meeting be passed by voice vote.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say no. This motion passes. Alderman Mitchell for the adjournment.
There being no further business before this body, I move that we adjourn.
Hearing no, just 1 second, please. Very good. We are good. That was a false alarm. There's a motion to adjourn. I'm going to accept that. Hearing no objections, so ordered. This meeting is adjourned.